morning. Good morning. Welcome, welcome. Thanks for joining. How's everybody today? Happy Tuesday. Happy Veterans Day. Thank you to anyone who is a veteran or has family members who are veterans. Thank you so much for your service. Auntie Gabby just raided. Thank you for the raid, Auntie Gabby. How are you today? Let me share your profile. This is my seller chat. So we're not auctioning anything today. There is Auntie Gabby, who is Gabriella, and she has a show scheduled on the 13th, Fall for Handmade. Is it a raid train or let's see? Oh, every Thursday, September 18th through to December 1st, handmade. Nice. What do you hand make? Well, it says handmade clothing and accessories, but what do you make? Ooh, Wicked is coming up. Defying Gravity Wicked. So, welcome and thank you so much for that raid. Everyone, please give Auntie Gabby a follow and bookmark those upcoming shows, please. Thank you, thank you. You're a quilter. So, for your handmade shows, what are you selling in your handmade shows? Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. Read the show notes. This is a seller chat. If you're a seller hoping to be a seller, thinking about being a seller, already are a seller, and need help. So bags and other small items. Nice. Very nice. So everybody please give her a follow. So today is Tuesday, what's today's date? Someone tell me. I'm blanking on the date. It is the 11th. The 11th. Okay, so her next show is on Thursday, like she said, every Thursday. So I was just, my treadmill's making a weird noise. Did I drop something on here? Huh, not sure. Let me speed it up a little bit here. All right. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining. Everybody read the show notes. I have in the show notes a bunch of information that helps you find where to get help. So the official sources are, of course, Whatnot. Textile Treasures is a fabric seller and trims. Welcome. Thanks for joining. So the 5-star bullets that are in the show notes, make sure you take a screenshot of that or go through and go follow the Whatnot seller account. Go subscribe to the Whatnot app account on YouTube, which is the official Whatnot YouTube account. And they do post videos there from the Whatnot seller shows they do. And they also put other content on there. And then selleracademy.whatnot.com is where you can go and take their little mini courses to help you learn how to navigate the app. The help.whatnot.com, or just inside your app, frequently asked questions is the same difference as help.whatnot.com. And then Whatnot has a blog. If you didn't know that, that's the last star bullet. And they put articles there that are very informative about what's going on with the Whatnot business. So make sure you go and read on the blog occasionally. Recently, they just announced a large investment funding of like $255 million. And a lot of that money, they said in there, will be going towards trust and safety on Whatnot, which is needed. With all of the growth and how quickly Whatnot has grown, it sadly always brings the bad with the good. More good than bad, but you always have some bad eggs. And trust and safety issues have escalated with, sellers who are not on the up and up doing bad things. And so they've got to, um, help with that. Tab says, my daughter and I have made some items that are in my Buy It Now under me. It's so hard for us to go live due to having small children all the time. Yeah, that is hard to go live when you've got little ones. Ask me how I know. I don't have little ones, but we take care of my granddaughter at least twice a week. And yeah, she's under 2, and it's impossible to go live with her here because she's just constantly into everything, and you just have to chase her around the house. So, yeah, it's pretty much impossible to go live with kids, little kids. I understand. So yeah, I would advise, going live either late at night or early morning every once in a while. It's difficult to make a lot of headway just trying to sell things in the Buy It Now, because there's not, people just aren't thinking about that. They're distracted by all the live shows. Not distracted, but that's what gets the attention, is the live shows. And so it is hard to just sell through the marketplace or in the Buy It Now. All right, let me just look and see how many people we have here. Tab says, I have no sound and you're frozen. I am thinking it may be me. Is anyone else having that problem? So textiles on the West Coast. When is a good time to do it in the evening to capture customers? So you do have an advantage being on the West Coast, since you are, the last time zone. It gives you an advantage to be able to go on at about 3 p.m. and still capture, a good amount of the audience after work hours. Although that's a very competitive time to go live because everybody else recognizes that too. So you just have to decide, what will work for you, honestly, and then experiment with different times and see what works best. It is pretty competitive right now, so a lot of sellers are having more success going live early in the morning or later at night. So you just have to experiment and see what works. But obviously, the prime hours would be, about 5 o'clock East to about, 5 o'clock Eastern time for the next 3 hours are the prime hours. But that's when it's most competitive, probably. So, yeah. All right. So, what does everybody need help with? What are the questions that you have? If you have something you need help with or have a specific question, put it in the chat with a question mark so it shows up in bold and I make sure not to miss it. And so, yeah, Tabs, I think it must be you. So go out and come back in or check your internet. And thanks for joining. So make sure you have tomorrow on my schedule. I have a show scheduled for the evening. We're going to talk about specifically strategies that you can do to try and increase your sales over the holiday season. It's going to be a tough holiday season, no lies. Um, the economy is still kind of iffy. People are unsure with the government maybe finally passing a budget a little bit too late for everybody to feel comfortable. Um, it's just a tough economy right now. And so, what are things that you can do to hopefully increase your holiday sales? And it's not that people aren't spending money, they just aren't spending as much. And a lot of people aren't spending at all. That's just true. But you still have a lot of people that have income because we're a shopping app, and people tend to only spend their, the money they can afford to drop on indiscriminatory spending, which is less than we would love it to be right now. So make sure you have this show scheduled. Can you see that on my screen? So this one that's on my schedule for tomorrow night. And Bert's going to be there with me. We're going to try and make it fun and just kind of pass along some tips and tricks, things you can do to try and increase your holiday sales strategies. People do tend to drop more money during the holidays, but you've got to have what they want to buy. And right now, that's not as loose and free as we would like it to be. So, yeah, fun times. Yeah. All right. Let me get these show notes closed so I can see. So, anyway, if you have any questions, things that you need to talk about, things you need help with, in the show notes, I also have my YouTube channel, Draz on Whatnot. It's the second big paragraph. And if you go into YouTube and just type it in with the ampersand, you'll be able to find it. It has the same logo, the little logo that I use here on my YouTube channel. And you can rewatch or watch some of the seller chats that I've done. And I have a couple in there that are really helpful. One of them is the don't sink your shipping. And so if you're having, if you're trying to figure out shipping still, make sure you go and watch that video on YouTube. And it goes with this document that I'm going to pin right here, which is choosing basic shipping settings. So it just helps you, because I'm in front of the camera with all the boxes and we go through everything and we show everybody the settings that you should put on your account depending on what you're selling. And I think the most confusing part for people with the shipping is that you do need to customize your shipping based on what you sell, because everybody sells different things. It just makes it hard to try and figure it out. You can't just come on and sell everything from, a large cabinet down to marbles and understand that they have a completely different way that you ship them. And the problem with Whatnot, or not the problem, but the challenge with Whatnot, is you just don't know what people are going to buy. You have no way of knowing when people come into your show if they're going to buy one thing or 20 things. And it's more the 20 things that cause the problem than the one thing, obviously. But you've got to know what you're doing. So make sure you go and watch that and use this document that I have pinned on your screen. So you can just tap the document like that, tap it again, take a screenshot, and kind of read through that. Another document that's really helpful that has to do with shipping, and this was put together by Blazin' Bunny, is this one. And it goes through, it's a little shipping label chart that helps you to understand what kind of label you can put on what kind of package. So if you are not familiar with how the US Postal Service works, that's part of the challenge too, is a lot of people don't understand how the Postal Service works. Because you haven't, if you haven't resold or you've resold on a different platform that's pretty automated, you do have to understand kind of how the Postal Service works. And it's based on regions or based on flat rate. So you have to kind of understand that. So use this chart to go through it and look at how the columns line up and kind of get an idea of, how that works. Because part of the issue with a lot of people shipping on whatnot is they don't understand that you can't put certain labels on certain packages. It has to match the package. So if you're using Ground Advantage, it can be your own box or bubble mailer or poly mailer. If you're using any of the flat rate boxes, the label you print has to be a flat rate label. It has to match the box. If you're using Priority that's not flat rate, which is confusing because they're both Priority, flat rate or other, with Priority that is not flat rate, you can use your own box or you can use the boxes and packages that are available through the Postal Service that are free. And I would highly recommend that if at all possible, if you can use the boxes and packages from the post office to your advantage, it will save you a ton of money because you're not having to buy as many shipping supplies. So you've got to get that figured out pretty quick so that you don't sink yourself with shipping before you even get started. All right, so any questions about that? Textile Treasure says, how do you promote the show so all my customers get the message on when I have upcoming shows? Well, honestly, the only way to really promote your show in the real sense is to spend money promoting your show, but that's not necessarily going to notify the people who've already shopped with you. The people who've already shopped with you, if they're following you and have bookmarked your show, they will get notified. That's automated. Another way is to always have listings that you carry over to every show. Let me show you an example. So if you go into my shop, if you click the shop button and go to the buy it now, see how there's items that have that little bell and a number next to it? That means people have pinned or not, it's not, the word's not pinned, but they've opened that item and put a little notify me. I'm trying to think what you actually do. You put the little bookmark on it. See that little bookmark symbol? You bookmark that item. And because that's an item that I have in every show, then it notifies people when you go live with that item in your show. Okay. So that's another way, is to always have listings. Hey, what goes around? Good morning. How are you today? All right. So if you have a legitimate question or comment, please put a question mark on it so it shows up bold in the chat, and we'll try and get onto it. All right, let's see what we have going on here today. All right. Did anyone else have any other comments or questions that you didn't put a question mark on? All right. Doesn't look like it. All right. What would be the most important thing you would tell a beginner? So, the most important things I tell beginners are in some of the documents I've put together. So, if you go into my auction tab, one of my things that I've been sharing for months and months and months is this that I just pinned. It is my top 10 tips for new sellers. So if you read through that, not yet. I'll let you know. I'm not sure what the motive is there. So what number one is schedule shows. So the number one tip that I always have shared is that. And then if you go and watch this video, let me just show you on here. So in the show note or in the auction tab, this last thing here, this is an interview that Kenny did on the Whatnot Seller account that I just pinned. And if you go to their YouTube account and watch this show that has that as the thumbnail, she is one of the product managers for Whatnot, and she talked about what can you do to make sure you get more notice and that the algorithms favor you. And she went through this big list of things, and it made me feel really good because this same list that I've been sharing for months and months and months is exactly basically what she went over, almost to the point. So, number one, schedule shows. That's how people find you. And I'm just almost amazed that at how many people that are new sellers go live for the first time and they have a show and they go live and they have no other shows scheduled. How are people going to find you again if you don't have other shows for them to bookmark? And how are they ever going to find you again if you're not out there on the schedule coming up with additional shows? So the number one tip is have shows scheduled. That's how you get found. Okay. Number two is you have to go live. And you need to go live as soon as possible to get the momentum going. And you have to go live as often as you possibly can, because that is really what determines your trajectory. People who want to really grow their business go live a lot. People who are more casual sellers, that's fine. Different goal, different life situation, but you're not going to have a lot of growth because going live is how you get found, how people are there with you frequently. It's just a fact. So going live is what makes it happen. Scheduling shows and then going live. And number three is listing items. When you're new, it's important to have things listed so people see what you're going to have to offer. If you have nothing in your shop and nothing listed in your shows, people don't know what you're going to offer and they're not going to be interested. That's just a fact. Once you're more established and you have a big following and a lot of people who regularly come to your shows, a little less important, but I would say still important enough for you to attract new customers, because you always need new customers to replace the customers who have bought too much or just are coming to support but not necessarily buying as much anymore. And a lot of people get a little bit too shop happy and have to take vacations from Whatnot because we all like to spend money on here that we don't always have. And so, it's kind of addicting. So you have to always plan that you always need to be attracting new customers. So that's important. And then number 4 is to stay live long enough to be found. If you go on for 15 minutes and think, well, nobody's showing up, and you close your show, you end your show, and you keep doing that, you're never going to get anywhere. You have to stay on a minimum of 1 hour to even get found at all. And then you're going to want to stay on a couple of more hours to actually get somewhere. That's just how it is. As a new seller, Whatnot will promote your very first show. But then after that, unless you pay to promote, you're on your own. And paying to promote is a mixed bag because unless you're going live enough in a category that paying to promote makes sense, it's really not going to give you a lot of extra benefit. So, you have to really, if you pay to promote, really look at the analytics and make sure it was worth it. And, people who are trying to hit the road running and want to go from zero to premier within a few months, it's worth it to pay to promote. It will get you where you need to be, but you're going to, be either taking a loss or breaking even for a period of time to get to that level fast. And some people, that's their strategy, and that's fine. So you just have to decide. Andy says, I usually see bigger numbers at the 1.5 hour mark. Bigger numbers in how many people are in a show. Oh, yeah. So, like at about 1.5 hours in, then you can see, that you finally started to get a decent audience. Exactly. How much does it cost to promote? It's however much you want to spend, because it's a sliding scale. So like I'll show you on my screen, if I hit the promote button, it comes up with either a 15-minute boost. I don't really think those do a lot. But you can promote your show, and it suggests for you how much to spend in order to make an impression. And they usually suggest right around $25 for the first hour. But if you stay on 3 hours, then it's going to charge you $25 an hour. So, but you can do less or more. So that's how you do it, is just hit that promote and it will do it for you. What goes around said, I received a $25 credit and I used it Sunday morning. Since it was found money, I wanted to see how things go on Sunday morning. It wasn't good. Yeah. So, it just depends. I think it probably is most effective in categories where there's a massive audience and a lot of shows. And in order to even be seen, you can promote and it puts you on top, and then it's worth your money. But in a category that doesn't already have, and by big numbers, I'm talking thousands of people. So some of your mainstream categories like women's contemporary, women's fashion, shoes, cards, trading cards, where they have thousands of people in there, that tune into the shows in those categories. There are sellers who definitely it pays to promote, because you can, pay to be on top of the search and get found that way. In categories that, like the one I'm in, fabric, quilting, sewing, crafts, we don't have thousands of people in our streams at any given time in those categories. It's a more niche category. Not everybody sews. Every woman buys clothes. Most of us buy way too many. See what I'm saying? So we have a more mainstream category like women's fashion that gets thousands and thousands of people in it. at any given hour versus the other more niche categories. So, can it work for you? Yes, but you have to be really strategic about it and then look at the statistics to make sure it was worth your money. So, yeah. All right. Hopefully that answers that. So yeah, 4 to 6 hours is my max too. I start getting tired. Um, but it just depends on what your endurance is and how much, if you have a goal, that determines it too. If you have a goal you have to meet, you stay on longer if you need to, or you do more shows that week or something. And I would highly suggest that you have a goal so that you know what you're working towards. Let's see, where does the promotion work? If I'm selling in quilting, does it show there or all over whatnot? So the promotion only is going to work for people who follow the category that you're selling it, which is why I was saying if you're in a category that already has, a limited amount of people who come into that category at all, then it's somewhat limiting. It will bring people over from across categories sometimes, and it will bring over people if you have listings that are in other categories. So it can, bring other people in from other categories that maybe didn't know you exist. But usually the potential for sales with bringing people in from other places is limited because they don't necessarily buy what you're selling, if that makes sense. So, how much stuff do you need to have to sell? I'm not sure what you mean, Newsy. So be more specific about that. Like, are you asking if you signed up to sell? If you haven't, are you asking if you want to sign up to sell, how much stuff do you have to show that you have so that you can get approved to sell? Is that kind of what you're getting at? When you stop talking, it's time to wrap it up. Yeah, when your brain goes dead, it's like, okay, I'm done. I have nothing left to say. Yep. Last couple of times, I'm like, that's probably 15 minutes into the show. All right, let's see. Textile treasures. I've stayed on for hours and maybe one or two people have come in. I don't want to give up. All right, so textile treasures. Let's look at this top 10 tips list again. And I will tell you too that there are some things, handmade is a hard category. We just don't have the audience for it. And I would say that you probably need to think hard about what you're hand making and make sure you're in the right category for it. Sometimes putting it under handmade automatically is a disadvantage because there's just not a lot of people who follow and shop in that category. So maybe you need to mix it in with other things that you sell or can sell, or maybe you need to have it in another category that makes sense with what you're making. So that's another issue. But looking at the top 10 tips, we talked about staying live. Another thing you need to do as a new seller is you need to make sure you have good lighting, good sound, and a good internet connection. If you haven't had a practice show, a private show, where you invite people to come on and tell you those things, please do that, because you may not even realize that the reason you're not getting an audience to stay in there is because they can't see, they can't hear, or you're pixelating all the time and they don't want to stay because they can't really interact with you in the show. So make sure you do that. And then number 6 is run your items. You literally cannot sell an auction item if you don't run it. If you sit there and show things but never run them, people will leave because you're not actually selling anything. You're just showing it and expecting them to tell you what you should run. So you run your items because that's how you get sales. Someone will eventually go, "Oh, I like that. Oh, that's a really good price. Oh, it's running. I'm going to swipe and bid." That's how you start getting sales. You have to run your items. And I know it seems kind of against human nature, honestly, to sit there and run things with no one buying. But eventually, people will start buying if you will run your items. How much inventory should you start with? Um, so an average hour worth of sales, you can run through about 30 items or up to 50 if you're a faster seller. So for an hour's worth, have about 30 items. Does that mean you have to have 90 items if you stay on for 3 hours? No, because when you're new, you can recirculate back through things that haven't sold because the audience you have in the first hour is usually different than the audience you have in the third hour. Yes, you still run items if no one's coming in because that's how the algorithms work. The algorithms favor shows that have an active, like they can actively see that you're doing things like chatting with people and running your items. Now, obviously, if you're not getting an audience, then that's hard to actually run and sell, but you will get more people if you've got an audience and you're running and starting to sell. That's how the algorithms work. So the more active a show is, the higher they will feature you in search. So you've got to be actively chatting, running. Get someone to moderate that you can chat with. Get your friends and family to support you when you're new. Come into your shows, interact with you in the chat, and then run every item. And then as people come in and out, if you're running items, they'll see something eventually and start buying. That's just how it works. And I know it's hard. It's hard, especially right now, because of all those other factors. But, that's if you're just diligent with that. But let me show you another document that I think really will help you do some hard thinking. So this document is called the 5 F's for attracting buyers. Because ultimately, if you can't get people to come and stay in your shows, you know, nothing's going to work, right? So, how do you get people to come and stay in your shows? Well, the number one thing is you've got to be having fun and making your shows fun and inviting, and that because Whatnot really is a big, huge part of it is entertainment. People are coming here to join shows to get entertained and also buy things. It's both, and I would say probably a show that has a really big audience, say 100 or more, probably only about 30% of the people in the show are actually buying. The rest of the people are just there watching. It's big part entertainment. Okay. Because at any given time, only about 30% of the people in the show can afford to buy anything that day or want to buy anything. So it's got to be fun, and you want the people that aren't buying in your show just as much as you want the people who are buying, because that's what helps you get an interactive audience that puts you up in the algorithms that then makes people want to come to your show. So you want buyers and non-buyers. And the people that are not buying are interacting in the audience and having fun just with along with, right? So that's important. What do you do about the few buyers that are friends and won't bid against their friends and openly say, I won't bid against you? Yeah. We have that problem in fabric and crafts, right? Everybody's a little bit too nice. But here's the thing. If they really want something, watch the teeth come out, right? I mean, yeah, they're nice, but if they really want something, they'll bid against each other. Just, I mean, it is what it is. There's nothing you can do about that, right? Because if they're, we've always been that way in that category because people are just so friendly and kind and nice. And trust me, it's a much better place to be than the cutthroat environment in some of the other categories. So it is what it is. And I know it gets a little bit frustrating because you'd like to see things get bid up. But then what I would say is price it at what you're willing to sell it at instead of, because if people are going to do that, you have to still make your profit. So price it at what you're willing to sell it at. And that way, if only one person is bidding because they're being nice, at least you got out of it what you need to get. Does that make sense? Yeah. All right. So, number one, fun. Your shows have to be fun. I don't know what that means. It means something different for everybody. Everybody's got a different personality. Everybody's, got a different vibe. Everybody attracts different type of people, but you've got to make it fun. What does that mean? Do some deep, hard thinking about what you can do to make your shows more fun. Number two, fast pace. You've got to keep it going. That doesn't mean that you have to be lightning, every auction is 3 seconds sudden death. It just means that you've got to have a quick enough pace to keep it going. There's not a lot of dead time, not a lot of time where you're fumbling around with stuff that people are bored and leave, right? So it's got to be an active, fast pace. People have the attention span of gnats right now, thanks to how life is and social media and the internet and TV and everything else. I mean, people's attention span is nothing. Squirrel every 3 seconds. And if you aren't keeping a fast enough pace and keeping things, new things coming up, talking about things, showing things that keep people's interest, they're going to leave. Okay. And then the third thing is you've got to have good stuff. What does that mean? I don't know. Depends on what you sell, but you've got to have the right kind of things people want to buy right now, or they're just not going to support you because they don't want to buy that. And you need to put your buyer hat on to think about that. And the exercise I tell everybody to do is to go out there and find 10 shows you've never ever been in, ever, open them up and have a pen and paper ready, pen and paper, and start writing down the name of the show and then have 2 columns. Why did I want to stay? Why did I want to leave? Those are your 2 columns. And start writing down, from a buyer's perspective, why did I want to stay in that show or why did I want to leave? And it will give you some really good insight about what you need to do differently to make your shows more fun, more exciting for people to stay. Because you're going to see some shows where you're like, "Oh, this is fun. I want to stay." Why? Write it down. And then figure out things you can do in your style, in your show, with what you sell to make people want to stay. And you've got to have the right stuff again. Okay. You've got to keep on top of what people are buying right now. And, if the hard fact is you don't have that, maybe you need to switch up what you're selling or how you're selling it. That's another thing too. I go into shows regularly where people are selling something And you can tell they have little to no knowledge about it and that they are not passionate about it. And you're just like, why would I want to buy this? You've got to tell people why they should want to buy it. You've got to have enough passion about the product you're selling for people to see the vision of why they would want to have that item. If it's just meh, here's this, here's that, and you aren't telling them how they can use it, what they can use it for, who it might be a great gift for, how it feels, how it is going to change something for you. If you're not selling it, people won't buy it. And some things are an easier sell than others. But, you got to paint a picture, you got to sell it. And then those three are the three things to get people in your shows and keep them there. And then once you've got them there, the next two F's. So I'm looking at this document. Make sure you take a screenshot of it. You can just tap it on your screen, tap it again to make it big, and take a screenshot. Once you've got them in the show, if you don't do good customer service and send their packages quickly, you will very quickly lose that customer. They won't come back. So you've got to provide good customer service and fast shipping. Simple as that. And then frequency. You need to do shows often enough that people will see you and make your shows part of their regular schedule. And frequency just depends on what your goals are. If your goals are, I want to be premier in 3 months, then you probably need to be live every day of the week. If you want to just sell enough to support your buying habits, then write down the number you want to spend, and then you've got to be on enough to make that much money so that you've got enough to spend. Does that make sense? So it just depends on your goal. But if you really want people to keep coming back, you need to be here often enough that they see you and come to your shows regularly. So it's just, that's part of the way the app works is, the more often you're on, the more often people will find you. You're there. They know what your schedule is. They'll be there for you when you come on. So, it just depends on your goals and what you can do and what works for you. Okay. So be honest and write down, what can I do right now? What are my goals? And then focus on that and less on comparing what everybody else is doing. Focus on what you want to do for yourself. Have a goal, write it down, work towards that goal. Okay. Did that kind of give you some insight, some things to think about, hopefully? And let me just make sure I didn't miss. Let's see, I can't get my lighting good. Any tips? I would say, here's my tips for people with lighting. If you can do your shows in a room and you're doing shows during the day, have a window that is to the side that you keep open. That does help. Also, rather than spend tons of money on studio lights, replace the lighting that you already have with what are called daylight bulbs. I know it's kind of annoying for everyday life, but if you have a dedicated room or a room that, your family's not hanging out in regularly, daylight bulbs just brighten up the room so much better than other kind of bulbs. Okay. And then if you use ring lights, you can get ring lights pretty inexpensively, but put them to the side instead of right in front of you, because then side light lights up the area without being right in your face and reflecting off everything, including your glasses and your eyeballs. All right. Do you still run the items? Yes, we answered that. What do you do about the buyers? Yeah, we did that. Okay. what's totally illegal and against rules, what goes around. I guess I missed that part of the conversation. So let me see. Let's see. Oh, the saying that they won't bid against you. That's not illegal to say that you won't bid against people and be friends. Is that what you were commenting on? Shill bidding is illegal. And that's where you have planted people in your audience who purposely bid things up to try and get the bids going. You know, someone that works for you or a family member or something. That's illegal. But just, a friend saying, "Oh, I won't bid against you." That's just friends being friends. That's different. So I'm not sure what you mean. Lovely Pinto says, I start talking about what you can do with it and get distracted. Yeah, me too. I go off on all of that, but I do really think it helps. You just have to try and do it a little bit faster. Paint the picture, but do it a little bit faster. And, because it does help to sell your items, to show, to tell, to explain. Just try and do it while you run it or fast enough that you're not like ad nauseum, right? So that's what you're referring to. Yeah. So look up shill bidding. That's where people are planted to bid. That's a lot different than just people, you know, and you don't always know when someone's not bidding to let someone else have it. There's no way for you to ultimately know that unless they comment on it. So yeah. Yeah, Wildflower says the same thing. Yeah. Sometimes she's having so much joy she forgets to run it. Yeah. Yep. And I'm kind of that way too. I get off on a tangent about a beautiful piece of fabric and what you can make with it and how it feels and all the colors and blah blah blah. And then I'm like, oh, I guess I ought to run this, huh? So yep, I get that. But what's wonderful about that is that people can see the passion about what you sell and they start to see the picture. And most likely, your audience has a lot of those same passions, and that's why they come back because they enjoy, what you sell and how excited you are about it, and the things that you're doing with it, etc. So I think that's important, because like-minded people are who are going to keep coming back to your shows because they like you, they like what you sell, and they like your passion and that you're fun and inviting and so on. Debbie does. I have so much upholstery, home decor fabrics that I can't seem to move. That is a harder category because not everybody, a lot more people in our category quilt and sew clothing and other accessories, but not everybody is looking for, the upholstery type fabrics because not everybody is, refinishing their furniture every day. So it is a harder category of fabric to sell. But if you paint the picture of what they can do with it, that will help. But it is harder. So, and it is harder to get a good price for what the fabric is worth. I sell fabric in that category as well, but I sell the sample size pieces and I sell them cheap because I can afford to because of how I obtain them. But when you're selling fabric off the bolt, there's a lot of different, you know, there's a lot of different issues about that. One, how much can you afford to sell it for? Two, is you have a limited audience for people who are wanting large pieces of, upholstery type fabric. So, yeah, you just don't have as big of an audience here for that type of fabric. So, it's probably, I would say it's probably a category where, it's probably less frequent of shows, but do specials and maybe augment it where, you have a regular website or other platform that you have just regular listings that aren't the live auction type listings. And I know other platforms are way down right now too. So it's hard on those other platforms. So, but yeah, if you can do a pattern or, demonstrations and show people things that you can make, that will help a lot. And I would say sell in smaller quantities instead of full yards, do half yards, because a half yard of a 60 or a 54 wide fabric is a lot of fabric. And you can sell it for a little bit more per half yard than you can yard. And the shipping isn't going to be as big of a nightmare with smaller pieces. That makes sense. Now, if you have people wanting large because they do want to reupholster something, that's different. And you can negotiate, a price or, have a set price for the yardage. And I would say don't undersell. If you have really, really nice fabric, I know you want to be selling in volumes, but we just don't have the audience for that necessarily here for a lot of people looking. We don't have the home decorators. We don't have, someone who runs an upholstery shop or a furniture refinishing business that have discovered Whatnot yet. Probably, so you just have to think through a lot of different strategies to figure it out. So, yeah. Welcome in, everybody. Please read the show notes. And I have the 5 F's for attracting and keeping buyers pinned. Honestly, I think this is one of my best documents for just helping people understand, the basics of how selling on Whatnot works. It is a different platform than anything you've ever sold on. If you've sold on eBay or Etsy or Mercari or Poshmark, those platforms, I think there is a little bit of live selling that they've added, but it's not anything like what Whatnot's doing. Whatnot is about live selling. It is not typically a marketplace where people can come and find a listing and buy it. Can you get those kind of sales? Yes, but it's very limited. Live selling is what Whatnot is about. So, yeah, it's just a different vibe. People go to those other platforms searching for something specific. You're like, okay, I need this. And you open that platform and you search for it. Will Whatnot eventually be at that point? Possibly. But the live sales are what it's all about. So people are coming to Whatnot for the shopping, but also a big part of it is the social, interactive, live selling aspect. It's replacing them going on social media. It's replacing them going on television to watch a show. They're coming here for not just the shopping, it's the social media platform. So you have to understand that when you're selling, you're not just on there hawking your goods, you're entertaining people, you're giving them a reason to come on and be on your show. So it just depends on, what you're able to do, what your goals are. And, if you want to just list and have people buy things, it's not going to work very well on here. That's the other platforms. But you can list and sell on here if you're willing to also go live, and then people's attention will be drawn to the items that you're listing in both your auctions, your buy it now, and your marketplace. So it's just a totally different way of shopping. And Whatnot fluctuates between number 1 and number 3 in the shopping category in the App Store. So if you go to the App Store, I didn't even realize they ranked things, but let me show you. It's kind of interesting. So if you go on the App Store on your mobile device and you search for Whatnot, the app. So we'll do a search. So I'm there. We're going to search Whatnot and see where they're at today. So here we go. Oh, and it's telling me I need to update it on here, which is I'm on this older iPad. But anyway, let me get that quickly finished and then I'll open it and show you where it shows the ranking. So here we go. So you tap that and it tells us on here that Whatnot is at, I'm trying to remember where it showed it. Oh, maybe it's not showing me on here. I know it shows it on my phone. Let's see. Ranking. I don't see it on here. But anyway, when you go on my phone, somewhere on here it shows you what ranking it is for shopping under the shopping category. Let me just look. Shopping category. Anyway, on my phone, it always is either number 1, 2, or 3. And if you think that, oh, so it's showing you number 3. Okay. So if you think about that, think about all the places online you can go shop that are like mind-blowingly huge, like Amazon, like Walmart online, like eBay, like Temu, like, I mean, just think about all of them, right? And we're in the top 3 regularly for the number of downloads in the shopping category. I mean, that's massive. And yet, here's the interesting thing. How many people that you talk to still have never heard of Whatnot? Are we a household name yet? I don't think so. I mean, we're getting there, but we're not, we're not still, household name level. Because you still talk to your friends and neighbors and family, and a lot of people still have never heard about Whatnot. So the potential for growth is still huge. It's still huge. So, you've got to be patient and you've got to do all the things that you need to do to put yourself in a position to be successful on here. Yeah, you were talking to someone at the post office, she'd never heard of it, right? It's still not household name. Okay. So still a lot of potential. You've just got to position yourself correctly, and it may not work for what you're selling. It may not work for how you're selling. So you've got to switch it up if you want to, have success on the app, because it is about live selling. It just is. That's what the platform was set up for. Do they want to have an active marketplace? Yes, they do, but it's not the main focus of the app. The main focus of the app is the live auctions, live streams. All right. So Meg is you're opening a package and you're gonna make something. I love it. I love to see what people make too. That's one of my fun, being able to sell fabric. I love fabrics. I would love to keep all the fabric I have. I cannot. And so it gives me great pleasure to sell it to other people who make things and then share what they make. And it's just one of those cycle of life things, right? It's so much fun to see what people make. And I do make some stuff. Yeah, it is a struggle. And you guys have been in my shows where I'm like, Bert will say that was one she just was having a hard time parting with. He's not lying. There are sometimes when I go through fabric that I'm just like, oh, I can't sell this. It's too beautiful. And then I'm like, wait a minute, I can't. So, yeah. I see advertisements for whatnot on YouTube, but they are for sports cards. Yeah, that's one of their biggest categories that they sell in, right? We're kind of peanuts compared to that category. And that's why I was explaining, when you're thinking about paying to promote, if you're in a category like that, it's probably well worth your money to promote because it's such a huge audience. And in order to get seen and be on top, paying to promote makes sense because you've got a big enough audience to promote to. In some of the other categories, and although our category has grown immensely, we just don't have, you go into whatnot and you go into our category, quilting, sewing, fabric. How many people are in? If you sit there and go through all the shows that are live at any given time and add up the number of people in the shows, usually you can get to about 150 to 200 people. And that's it. That's who's in our category. See what I'm saying? So, whereas if you go into a sports card category, you can have shows that have thousands of people sometimes. So, we're just not a mainstream category. And we probably never will be because not everybody buys fabric and quilts and sews, but that's okay. You know, we have, we have enough people coming. And here's the key too, is how many new buyers are you getting? So if you're doing things right, you're getting at least a couple of new buyers every show. And I'll have shows sometimes where I have more new buyers than I have repeat buyers. So that tells me something, right? Yeah, the sports card thing is a whole thing. And we have a whole thing going on in our category too, but it's different and it's not as mainstream. There's just a bigger audience in some other categories, and that's how it is. And honestly, I'm okay with that because those categories that get huge audiences, it's cutthroat. No, it is not possible to see the chat, but what you can do if you want to is do what's called a screen record, and then you would be able to see the chat because it's recording the whole thing. So on your phone, you would go to the settings, and it's the little swipe. If you're on an iPhone, it's the swipe down where you get your flashlight. There's it's a little thing that looks like a video camera lens, and you can screen record your whole show. But that's going to take up a lot of your storage because, you're screen recording. But I would suggest if there's things that you want to remember from the chat, just take screenshots, during the show if you can, and then you'll be able to see what people were saying in the chat. So, yeah, you're welcome. But yeah, we are getting regularly lots of new people coming to the app. So It's, you have that, that's obvious because it's fluctuates between number one and number three um, in downloads in the shopping category. So that's huge. So people are finding us every day. And honestly, the best thing that we can do individually and collectively is to promote our shows on social media. So get yourself out there on your Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever else you use, Twitter. It's not called Twitter anymore, X. And promote your shows and get the word out. And then also talk to everybody, tell people what you do, share, what you're doing to get the word out. Do we know the category rankings on Whatnot? I'm sure Whatnot could tell you, but that's not something they publish. But I can ask. There is an article that they put on their blog like about a year and a half ago that has some information about that. Um, Seems like it came out at the beginning of the year last year. So maybe about a year ago. Anyway, it talked a lot about the different categories and um, percentages and stuff it gave. So go look for that article on the blog. And the blog is the last starred bullet on in the show notes. So let's see, it's blog.teamwhatnot.com. They did talk a little bit about that. So yeah, I don't know why they don't necessarily, heavily. I don't, for one, where would they put it? Where would they put it? But it would be kind of interesting to know, what are the highest categories. I think you can probably, just by looking at audience numbers and stuff, have a pretty good idea, what categories are the hottest categories. But, and you have to just think about it from the perspective of real life. How many people buy clothing? Everybody buys clothing, right? So clothing is going to be a huge category because it's a mainstream thing, right? But then you also have categories that Whatnot's origin of trading cards and Funko Pops and those kind of trading type things. That was their original startup. That was what they originally started up with. So the fact that those are huge makes sense, right? Because that's where their original growth and focus was and continues to be in certain categories because that's their bread and butter, right? I love the nicheness of the fabric category. Some sellers feel like walking into a quilt shop and um, being greeted by name. Yes, exactly. We're a whole different vibe. That's for sure. Right. And think about it that way too, because here's the sad thing about fabric, right? So many communities right now don't even have a fabric store anymore. Now that Joann's went out of business, not every community has a local quilt shop. And even those that do have local quilt shops, you can't hardly afford to buy what's in the local quilt shops. So, what are you doing to create the atmosphere that people will feel like they're coming into their quilt shop? What can you do to make them feel welcome, excited about what you have, and, really want to buy your fabric? And I know there's a lot of hardcore quilters who are struggling because they like to, and I'm one of these types of people. I like to feel it and I like to color match it. So, what are you doing to help them feel it and match it? What are you doing? Think about that. Okay. Let's see. I found the app in January of 2023 when Hammy was started. I felt like it was promoted more then. Yes, they actually had employees at Whatnot who were dedicated to our category to help it get launched. But then once they got it launched to a certain point, they actually let those people go because they felt like, okay, now we're focused on other things. So they launch a category and give it a lot of support, but once they feel like it's taking off naturally on its own, they kind of they don't necessarily keep. And unless they feel like that category really is worthy of tons of promotion, and because we're not a mainstream shopping item, I don't know that they ever will necessarily pour tons of money into promoting our category. It just is what it is. And that's why it's helpful for all sellers in a category to, be doing what you can do to help bring people to the app, with your social media sharing, with, how you share the app with your ring of influence, your family, your friends, your associates. You need to, and that's always the case on any platform that you sell on. The app can only do so much to promote. You need to also be doing your own promoting. It's your own business. Every business has a marketing expense, you know? So even though you're using Whatnot as a platform to sell on, you can't expect them to directly market for you. You have to do your own marketing. You're using the platform to sell, but you've got to do your own promoting, your own marketing. So, yeah. All right. I have a limited amount of time today. I need to get going. Did I miss any questions? Let me just make sure. Yeah, it would be interesting. I agree. Story of home. I'll have to ask if they're going to do another article like that one they did on the blog. Go look at that one because it really did kind of lay things out. But it would be nice and interesting to see, percentages and growth in different categories. So, yeah. Story says, I freely admit in my show when I'm struggling to part with pieces. Yeah, me too. You guys you see me do it. Because I'll be like, legit, I did not want to sell this. Someone please make it worth buying, so that I don't cry when it's gone. So yeah, it's real. The struggle is real. All right. So everyone make sure you have tomorrow night's show bookmarked. It's this one. We're going to talk about strategies for holiday sales. And honestly, this year, I don't really know what to tell you other than do your best. Because it's just one of those years where I feel like discretionary spending or indiscretionary spending is going to be limited to what people really feel like they need, and less about what they want, sadly. So, you do the best you can and try and bring the things that you think people will not be able to resist. Does that make sense? And also price your items at what you're willing to sell it at. That's a really important thing right now because it's tempting when you see bigger sellers running things for $1 or $2. But honestly, right now, I see a lot of those bigger sellers and they have stuff that's selling for $1, and nobody can afford to sell stuff for $1. It just doesn't work. So, don't feel like you have to run things at a lower price than you can afford to sell it at. because you do need to make a profit to be on here selling. So don't sell for less than you're willing to take. Now you've got to be reasonable and understand that, people are coming here for good deals. If you can't offer a good deal on something, don't sell it right now. Wait for later. So, yeah, it's not a yard sale, it's a selling platform. And unfortunately, we have a lot of sellers who are selling like yard sales because they buy full storage units and they can't afford to sell it at that price. But that doesn't mean you have to. Okay. All right. So let me go see who we can raid into. Yeah, and if you're just trying to liquidate some things, that's a totally different thing too, and people will recognize that. It's different, but don't expect the next seller to sell it for that price. All right, let's see. Let me just see if there's anyone else doing seller chats. If not, we'll raid into I don't know that person. All right, we'll just go raid into our fabric sales. Let's see who's on. All right, let's go raid into Treasure Hounds. And she's doing a Veterans Day sale, 4 yards, $8 start bid, and half yards, $2 start bids. She's very kind and nice. They sell in storage unit category as well, and they got a big fabrics units and that they're winding down on. So we're gonna go right into there. You are so welcome. Everybody have a great day. Our show today, I moved it up, so we're doing it at 2:59 Mountain Time, and we have the estate sale stuff today. So really nice stuff. I brought a bunch of really nice stuff back to go through. So, and we're doing a fat 8th game that's fun. So make sure you have that bookmarked if you like it. And we're going to go raid into treasure. All right, you guys have a wonderful day. See you again soon. And let me find that treasure. Here we go. Bye now. See you soon.